Modals of advisability, pronunciation note. So in American English, we use ought to just the same way as we use should to give advice. It's very informal. We don't often use it in the negative, as we mentioned in the other video. When we use it, we often pronounce ought to as oughta, oughta. Notice the t in ought to sounds like a d because of the double T, the ought to. So I ought to get a new computer will sound like I ought to get, I ought to get, I ought to get a computer. For had better, we pronounce had as the contraction d, and sometimes we even leave it out. So in the statement, you had better get a flash drive too, we'll pronounce it as you'd better, you'd better, you'd better get. Or we might just leave out the had altogether and say, you better get, and that's very informal. You better get a flash drive too. You better get a flash drive too. And real quickly here on should not, the pronunciation of shouldn't is shouldn't, shouldn't. You shouldn't go to that party. You shouldn't apply to that company. Shouldn't.